Sure we all know why we are here. Jon Hems. He used to live in Parford Street, number 25, and he was part of most of the development in the Parford Street area. And personally, I know him for a very long time, but recently we lost contact and we lost contact altogether. However, we all know that we are here for a very short span of time, and we do good and bad deeds. When we pass away, people talk about good and bad, and therefore we are here is to talk about what Jon did and what Jon believed and Jon's contact with friends and family and neighbors. So today, although it's a small meeting, but this weather you don't expect. However, even a small number, I think we know Jon and we are here to pay respect to Jon's activities and friendship and so on. We will give opportunity to everyone to say a few words about Jon, but only good. Only good, of course.
Totally disapprove.
Okay, so what people do good, bad, and many other different things. We are not here to talk about it. We are only here to talk about good, what Jon did, and so on. So, once again I welcome you all. And shall we start from here? If from the lady from the left, and if you wanted to say a few words about Jon, and then we'll go around and will it work?
I mean, my suggestion to you would be, if you wanted to invite people to volunteer themselves instead of pointing at any individual.
Okay, in that case, leave it if you wanted to start talking, so we'll go on.
Okay, my name is Bob. I'm sure I don't. I came to know Jon when in my teenage. I vividly remember when in the mid 80s when we were living in Parford Street. At times I used to see he's wearing a white coat and working in a car. And you remember in the 80s, we used to see GPs wearing white coats. I used to think, is he a GP or mechanic? Then at the same time, I used to see he's carrying a crowbar and doing building work. And I used to think, what's going on, what's on? And then at times I used to see he's cycling. And I used to think, oh my God, he's such a wonderful, intelligent man, a doctor, a mechanic, a builder. But what he is really, I had no idea of Trinity then, otherwise I would have related to him as Son, God, Father and everything. 1 in 3, 3 in 1. And then one day, I remember he had approached me. I was on my bicycle, I was quite small. And he asked me, where have I got this bike from? And my perception of English people then, oh my God, he's going to start my bicycle. Tall, skinny, and skin-headed man. And then after talking to him, my English wasn't that good then. After talking to him, I felt a little bit eased. He was friendly, and he just wanted to know where I've got my bicycle and what I have paid for it. And following which, obviously, I came to know Jon because of my his working relationship with my brother, developing and dealing with the co-op. And then in the 90s, when I became a local councillor, Jon Hems was working for the housing director of the Hamlets Council. He used to be at a committee meeting presenting housing reports. And so forth, and we were quite close in terms of what he was trying to do in terms of housing strategy, redeveloping and regenerating Tower Hamlets as a whole. And following which, I think then, obviously, at one time I remember I was told or informed he left council employment for personal reasons. what I found about Jon, what he believed and what he wanted to do, he can be very impatient. He wanted to do it as quickly as possible, and sometimes bureaucracy and barrier sometimes used to make things difficult, and Jon used to lose his patience and he used to get very angry. But as a person, I found him very interesting, easy to relate, and someone who had the right heart to do good things for the community. He did quite a lot, and obviously, in the late 90s, 2000 onward, I lost contact with Jon. At one time, I was fortunate enough to work with one of his colleagues, Fuli. Where is Fuli? In 2010, Fuli came to work with me at Abax Health NHS Trust. And then one day, Fuli had invited me to her office. I went there without expecting anything, and that bumped into Jon. And this is how we kind of reconnected in terms of our community interaction, following which on and off, he used to visit me at the Stepney Community Trust. He used to do bits and pieces whenever we wanted him to do something for us in terms of research, needing help with grant application. He would never say no. He would find and make time to help anybody in need and trying to do something positive and creative for the community. I would say in my long experience of working and relating with Jon, I have always found him to be a very passionate, caring, but more importantly, he wanted to do things for the community as a whole. I can say we all need to pray for his soul to rest in peace. That's all I wanted to share with you guys.
Thank you. I'll give you. Do you think you say something?
Yeah, I didn't really know him too well, but what I did know of him is that he used to organise the best day out at one holidays once a year.
It's sad if I to stand here and talk about Jon and his kids. I met Jon in my years starting off at BYM, doing all the community work and that. We work nowadays with the label as the newly left, people who wanted to bring change to the community, and Jon was one of those. Sorry, one of it emotionally difficult to talk about it in that way, because he was a kind soul and immensely passionate person about community development, local work, and dealing with issues in that manner. So before I even got onto the council, I met Jon through the community work in Manchester. I was very at that time and so on. And got to know Jon in a totally different way. So when I became chair of housing, I said to Jon, now the lunatics have taken over, what do you want to do? So got involved in a range of different projects through the council, and then go to a range of different elements that we got. That's how I met Jan. Yeah, that's how I met Jan as well. And he's one of those persons that was very, very unusual in the sense that, as Bottle said, is called that very, very soft when it came to you talking to him. He had a gentle manner about him in that way. So it was easy to get on with Jon in that arena. And he always was, what can we do about the issue of housing? Housing has been one of my passionate arenas that I've worked in, starting off with homeless families, knocking down doors, and letting in families in those days into various buildings because of the overcrowded situation of the Bengali community here. When we first started in the 70s, that was our main element, that was our main activity, apart from us doing youth work. That was our main activity, was the squatting movement, and actually getting people out of that submarine, and John was one of those people that we worked with within that, and he was extremely helpful and wanted to move things forward. as Cycle said, and Nazrul, that he lived in the arena, in a street where you had massive letters saying improve housing because of the quality of those elements of it, and a lot of those were started off as squats. A lot of those started off as squats. So in that element, John has left a mark in that arena. And there are two kinds of people in the world: the surface scratchers and the people who just live life. And John was a surface scratcher. And what I mean by surface scratcher is people that leave a mark on society, people that leave a legacy behind them. And he was one of those persons. And God bless his soul. I can't say anymore. It's too emotional to go in. Thank you very much.
Shall I just say a few words quickly? I won't keep you long. That's right, I'll have to stand to do this. What can I say? It's come as a great shock, and I have to admit, he's a damned hard act to follow. He was our leader. We followed for him for his inventiveness. We followed him for his imagination. We followed him for his vision, and as Shakira has just said, his ability to reach out into communities and actually help other people. He's a hard act to follow, and I don't think that I can do it. But I'm going to have a try. Shakur has actually said this goes back 30 years. Soifel said it, Bodril said it. John started his work in this area in the 1980s, and now we've actually moved outwards. Our heart is into our hamlets, but we have a presence now in Barking and Dagenham. But John's untimely passing has made us even more determined to continue with the work that we started, back in the 70s, which has moved through the 80s and 90s with working in social housing to move it forwards. Everything changes and everything's fluid. And I think now what we're looking at doing is trying to spread opportunity equally across the communities to give people who may not have the loudest voices better representation. And certainly our, Lewis, chuck me your brochure, I'm just going to use it as an aid. Work that we're doing now with what's called the Digital Arts Coalition out in Barking and Dagenham is there to work with young people from the communities that often don't immediately go into the cultural sector, don't immediately go into architecture, don't immediately go into building and regeneration. And we want to work with them in future to help them develop new ways into formal education and into careers. And that's made us even more determined to actually continue the work that John started 30, 40 years ago. We can't walk in his footsteps, but we're going to have a damn good try. That's it. Yes, and hot off the press, just to make sure I've got this correct, this has happened quite nicely and serendipitously. His mum's just confirmed the date for John's funeral, and we'll make sure everyone here gets an invite to it. We've got the date of Thursday, the 2nd of March, at 11 a.m. At the City of London Crematorium and Cemetery, and I think that's Aldersbrook Road, but I will send round, obviously, with pucker invites and things like that, so that people can actually get there in time, and that will be fantastic. We'd love to see you all there, not a dry in the house. I miss him enormously, but we are where we are, and we'll just have to go on without him. Thank you, everyone.
Actually come so people can see you.
Yes, of course.
And use the microphone as well.
My voice is so my name is Forequality Baker. I was John's office manager and PA between 2000 and we only stopped working together end of last year. In between, I have had a break away from him. We needed that, otherwise our fun and play actually burnt a lot of people simply because everyone's going to discuss work matters. Like my brother-in-law's mentioned, the fun and play was just off the press every time. So he came to a point where he might have got classed as the best boss in the world from me, simply because whilst I was at work, I was happy with my family, I was happy at work, and community was always booming. So when there was a need for, oh, we're bored, money could be tight, what shall we do to make ourselves feel better, a day out, a weekend away, and all of those things was the life and soul of Jon, because he enjoyed what I enjoyed, which was, we want to make money Monday to Friday, but Friday evening to Sunday night we want to party, simply because life's too short. As we're getting older, we've lost people who are so much younger than us, so much older. He's lost so many friends whilst he's been in my life, and every time I spoke to him, he was still humble and kind of, you could tell he still had love for people in his heart. So he missed people when he'd say, oh, he meant it, simply because they put a downer on everything he went for. So the only thing I can say is that Jon's been a part of my life for 23 years. I don't think I'll ever forget him. Unless I end up with Alzheimer's or dementia eventually, I might do, but we've got our photos, memories, and he was a major part in my life as a boss, colleague, friend. Anytime you needed him, like everyone's already highlighted, he was there to support people with whatever was needed. Housing application, job application, drop-offs. I mean, only in December he was running back and forth, supporting me, distributing my books. So those things really matter. He didn't need a payment for it, but if you treat him with a bag of fish and chips, that bag of fish and chips was a highlight of his day by the time he went home, shut his doors and enjoyed a meal. So my personal message to everyone is live. Jon was dancing in front of my eyes with me in his flat, because we were celebrating New Year's 3 nights before he passed away. So I want that for myself. And because of that, I want to say thank you to every single staff, volunteer, family, friend, anyone who's met Jon through me, who still supports him on a daily basis and gathers every time I put a message out. They're there to meet up, to cuddle Jan, to help. You know, as soon as he passed away, our main message was, oh no, how's Jan doing? And that was it. And it was just like, right, okay, don't worry, I'm going to go and drop her off, I'm going to follow her around in the car, just until we irritate the life out of her, just to know that she's doing all right. So I just hope he rests in peace, simply because he's kind of started off whatever's to go forth for the next couple of years for Jago, as well as left me in a position to feel like, right, everything's under control, and if we carry on just going forth for what we believe in, it's the happiness. Every time me and Jon discuss matters, because as a PA you get that moment with the CEO to sit down and think, what is it that you really want? And he was just like, I want to do things that I'm passionate about. Because if he wasn't passionate about something, no matter how long he spent on the project, at the party, you could just tell looking at his face that he wasn't there. But if he was passionate about something, until it was delivered, he was there, and he was there to celebrate it. He didn't care if he was in a Muslim surrounding or anywhere else. He'd actually complete the job, and he'd want to drink, and he'd go and celebrate. So please don't stop, because those are the things that we want to pick up on in an ever-changing world, which can get entirely depressing as soon as, you know, wars kick off, or, you know, earthquakes kick off, and kind of feel like they burden us even when we're in our happy, humble homes, fed and clothed and warm. Those things do burden us. The only way we're going to get out of it is by doing something about it. And I reckon Jon would say whatever he could and to support that even till this day. And if he was to be sad about anything that's gone on within the time frame I've known him, it might just be that he's not here to continue with it much longer than he has been able to. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Please,
Hi, my name's Elaine. And I worked with Jon at the council, initially at Gladetown neighbourhood, with the terrible Liberal administrations that we had in Town Hamlets in the day. And later on, Labour had a victory down in the housing department of Mill Harbour. And I was actually seconded into Jon's team to do something quite different from probably what the other people in the team were doing. So it was all very sudden, like, one day I was, working conventionally at my hospital, and the next day I was in Jon's team. I'm quite shocked to the system it was. I have never had a boss, so different from anything I've had before, or any sort of boss I've had since. But it was really, really wonderful to work with, Jon and his team. And, it's something I'm so grateful, I had the opportunity to do. Jon had hugely high expectations, in work for him. And it was like, don't come and tell me your problems, your job is finding a way around things. And, it was incredibly challenging, for us working in that team. But, I learned so much. And, it's not only, what it's for me, it's, what enabled it enabled you to do the work you were doing. And obviously, what we were doing is developing special needs housing, which was hugely, hugely important. And the impetus of Jon Davis, enabled us, to do so much good. As a boss, he could be infuriating at times, but huge amount of fun, and I think like Kobi said, it was, we work from, Mondays to Saturday lunchtime, and, it's party time and fun time, and it was just a huge, huge privilege, to know Jon, and he was the person who just lived life to the full, in every sense, in terms of the work he did, in terms of, his enjoyment of life, and, the sad thing is that, he passed away, too soon. I mean, I think I hogged stuff as my GP was told me, it's no bad thing. Other ways that you can help from this life. But the trouble with Jon is it only happened 30 years too soon. That's a huge, huge amount of regret. But yes, we, as Sheffield said, he made a mark in the world, and we should really, celebrate that and be grateful, we had him in our lives.
Thank you. Daniel?
I mean, I don't think I have anything in the narrative to share, but what I do have are I have lots of visuals. The first time I saw him in an office, and he was living on fire. I was thinking, what's he doing? Who's this guy? Or, long stories he used to tell, which at one point I thought maybe he was a bit of a fantasist at the beginning when I didn't know him well. until I began to realize that these crazy stories were all true. So very clean, very receptive, very cunning, but also since he's gone, I would turn around at least 6 times to say, oh, I should buy a straw. When my son said, Mom, the fridge isn't working, I said, well, it's a gosh. And that's considered him. So I think that sort of encapsulates the way in which he was very good at listening, sharing, but on all those different ranges. And very good with the tongue.
Okay. That's it.
Well, I've just got pictures, lots of pictures. And then there's the edited bits, and then there are the bits that I've edited out because that was part of Jon too.
Anybody else want to make a small contribution? Ahmedullah.
Most of you don't know me, and I don't know Jon for long, right? But I work for Stepney Community Trust, and in late 2018, I think, I was talking to the board, going through a lot of school reports and critical tons, and a lot of old pictures now. So much activity in relation to children and helping people fill up forms and trainings and meetings and so on. I realized this Stepney Trust, they've got so much information, records to do with each of the area, and they just sitting there, nothing being done. So I was talking to Bodru, and Bodru told me about squatters. I said, what squatters? I didn't know anything about it. I know this area a little bit, right? Then Bodru said, talk to my brother. And I talked to Soiful, and they said, need to speak to what's the guy's name? Faruk Gandhi. Right?
Faruk and Mala Gandhi.
I don't know, John.